Today, I'm going to be talking about recurve risers for beginners. And I'm going to give you 4 great examples of recurve risers that are a good option if you are a beginner in 2025. Because obviously, every year, the kind of risers that you can buy change. This is a little bit of a minefield, it turns out. When I was researching for this video, some of the articles seem to just be plastered with affiliate links, which makes you doubt how reliable the recommendation is. Other articles recommend getting risers and archery equipment from Amazon, which is an interesting kind of way to approach it. I wouldn't really recommend that. And then some articles kind of just only include hunting risers and that kind of thing. So I wanted to give you a Olympic style targeted, but also for bare bow, generally recurve target archery risers recommendation. So let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we've got some risers here. I'm using clickersarchery.co.uk just because this is the shop that I used to buy my stuff from when I was shooting. And they ship worldwide as well. So if you do see something here you like, they do ship worldwide. But I'd recommend using an archery shop in your area as well, rather than using Amazon or something like that. So for example, the first riser I wanted to talk about, and this guide wouldn't be complete without this, is just the standard beginner bow. So you've probably seen this before. Maybe you did your beginner's course with it, or if you're thinking about doing a beginner's course, this is probably what you're going to use, something like this. But this is a good option to buy for yourself as well, because if you use a bow like this, it basically keeps the price of increasing your limb weight cheap. If you buy a more expensive riser, like I'm going to show you in a minute, when you want to go from 24 to 26 pounds or 26 pounds to 28 pounds, whatever it is, and then you get new limbs, it's going to be more expensive. But if you keep the cost of the riser cheap and you get one of these wooden risers, the limbs, as you can see here, the limbs are 37 pounds, but essentially that cost of upgrading those limbs is quite cheap compared to a more expensive option. So it does give you that. The downside is that these limbs aren't international limb fitting limbs. That is a downside. But if you have just kind of graduated your beginner's course, this is a good option. This is a good riser to use. It's cheap. It's at the lower end. This is kind of the entry level end as well. If you're on a lower budget, this is a great option. I shot with a similar type of riser. It was a Cap, was the brand. Carbon/foam riser, entry level one. I shot it for about 2 years when I began shooting, and I think I shot about a 570 Portsmouth with that riser. So you can shoot good scores with risers like this, and maybe that would be an interesting YouTube video for another time, is what's the highest score you can shoot with a wooden a wooden riser. That might be quite entertaining, but you get the idea. So I wanted to mention this because some people discount it, and it is actually a good option, much better than getting one of those random sets that are some of the random sets that I've seen on Amazon. This is a good option. So what I wanted to show you next is another option from a little bit higher up in the kind of price range. This is a WNS, which is Win and Win's entry level brand. This is WNS riser, and this is £81, so basically $100. So this is a little bit higher in the price range, but for that you get a metal riser, you get international limb fitting, and you just have to, because this is an entry level riser, you just have to note that this riser is not suitable for draw weights 40 pounds and over. But that's not really an issue, because more than likely you won't be shooting, well, you shouldn't be shooting over 40 pounds if you've just started archery. So this is a good option, and it's fairly lightweight. So when you're looking at a beginner riser, 11-20 grams is not a bad option because it's fairly lightweight. You also have the option, if you're shorter and you don't need that 25-inch handle, you can get the 21-inch handle, which is only 960 grams. So you're saving a little bit of that weight, which is going to make keeping your bow shoulder down when you lift the bow, because that weight is less. It's going to make that easier for you to keep your bow shoulder down, which is a common thing that beginners struggle with. So this is overall is a great option. And the reason I would consider this strongly, if you have got a little bit more money to spend, you've used one of these wooden risers for quite some time, maybe in the beginner's course, maybe a little bit afterwards, and you want a riser that is just going to give you access to that international limb fitting, this is really, really good, because And this is exactly what it says on the website. Explore DX is a great entry-level riser for those looking to transition from their first wooden takedown bow to get an ILF metal riser. Couldn't agree more. This is a great option. And yeah, really good. And as you can see, if we zoom in here, you can see it's got adjustable limb bolts, obviously standard arrow rest holes. It's got the 2 arrow rest holes like every riser does. No one uses one of them anyway. I don't know why everyone bothers screwing them, but there we go. And it's also got limb alignment. You can just about see here it's got limb alignment screws. So it's a good option. So those are 2 options. I want to mention, before I get on to the third option, the Kinetic Evolium. Kinetic seemed to be, it's a new brand that I've not shot myself, but they seem to have a kind of range of entry to intermediate level, or at least priced risers. And I just wanted to mention kind of my thoughts behind this. Personally, I'd be really interested. Let me know in the comments below, actually. Does anyone shoot a Kinetic riser? Maybe an Evolium or maybe another riser? And what's your experience been with it? I want to read through and see how you found it. Have you had any problems with it? Have you liked it? How does it feel compared to your other risers? Let me know in the comments about that, because I'd be really interested to hear that. But personally, for me, if it was me doing this, and if I'm recommending as well, I wouldn't go for something like this, because I'd like to go for a brand that has a proven track record at the higher end. So, for example, the WNS is made by Win and Win, who have that track record of top-end risers that are proven on the international stage, Olympics, World Champs, and loads of top archers use them. So that gives me the confidence that they can kind of filter down that knowledge, essentially, and make decent entry-level risers without cutting some corners that might cause issues with quality control, or stresses in the riser and fractures and that kind of thing. Because I have seen some risers snap where the design hasn't been that great, and they've forgotten that, like, for example, there was one riser company where there was a sharp angle and a 90 degree angle. The riser looked great, performed great, but because of that 90-degree angle, it caused a crack in the riser. And eventually there were actually a couple of risers that I saw that literally snapped because of that 90-degree angle, which is something you don't want in kind of engineering terms. So rounded corners are better. So I'm not saying that's going to happen with a Kinetic riser at all. I don't know. I've not shot it, but it just, for me personally, I would want to stick with a brand like WNS. And also there's a Hoyt riser that I want to show in a minute, which is another kind of decent example, if you like. But that's kind of my thoughts on this, because you can see here as well, the Kinetic have got an Elizo, or however you say that. There's kind of a few different options. Like I said, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to read through those. But those are the 2 of the risers that I'd recommend so far, the wooden one and the WNS one. Before we get on to the next 2, I want to mention this video is actually going to be kind of a 2-part series. And I'm actually going to talk about the limbs and what you would get for good beginner limbs, how you would progress in your draw weight, good options for that, things to look out for, things to avoid. I'm going to be talking about in a separate video for my Online Archery Academy community members. So if you want to look at this full video and watch it all, you can join my Online Archery Academy members community. I'll just show you here what that looks like with with an awkward freeze frame there. But essentially, you can join this community. There's actually a 7-day free trial as well. So I'll put the link in the description if you want to join and see the content in here. But essentially, you join this community and you get there's all these resources, videos that I make exclusive. Like, for example, this video, I'll put that in the community. I did one on how to choose tab size, good shoes for archery, how far out should you extend your sight, is checking the clicker okay. This is just in the tuning and equipment section. Then we got things in technique guides. These are exclusive videos in the technique guides as well. So things about expansion, someone asked about, should it be aggressive or soft? And there's loads of things like that. So I think you're really going to love this community, because you can also ask questions in this submit Q&As, and that's where I do some of these videos. For example, someone asked about chin drag, that expansion question, and stuff like that. So if you haven't checked that out already, definitely check that out. I'll put the link in the video description below, but it's members.onlinearcheryacademy.com, and you can join with a 7-day free trial like I mentioned as well. So I just wanted to mention that, because I'll be talking about limbs shortly there. For now though, let's go back to the next kind of recommendation here, which is a Hoyt Exact. Now, I feel like Hoyt have missed a trick here. because they've completely missed out the lower end of the market. This WNS riser is really well priced, around about $100, to capture that wooden to metal ILF transition that, you know, Clickers Archery talk about here. But Hoyt have gone in right in at that kind of, I guess this is closer to, what is that, like $270? Maybe I got that wrong. But basically, it's much more expensive, and they kind of missed out that low end of the market in terms of price. So I feel like they've missed a trick here. And looking at this riser, it doesn't seem like you get that much more than, for example, if we go to this WNS Explorer, at first glance, it doesn't seem like you get that much more than this kind of riser. The main difference is, because you get limb alignment here, you get the adjustable limb bolts, obviously. Everything else is pretty much standard. The main difference that you are going to get is it is a little bit lighter, which is good, and it doesn't have, at least from what I can tell here in the documentation, it doesn't have a 40-pound limit like the WNS riser does. So that says that it's a little bit stiffer, it's a little bit stronger than this WNS riser, but considerably more expensive. So this is another good option, especially if you feel like you're wanting to be in that Hoyt kind of ecosystem. This is a good option because you can basically start with this Hoyt riser and get a feel for the brand, and then see if you like their products, their limbs, how their limbs feel, without spending, let's see, doesn't say here, but it's going to be £850, isn't it? It's going to be something almost £1,000 on a Hoyt riser without testing if you actually like how they feel. So this is a good kind of entry level there with this riser. Now, let's get to a similar one as well. If you're in this kind of price range, the £200 price range, there is also another WNS riser, which is very similar. So this is 1120 grams, slightly heavier than this Hoyt Exact. So I'd kind of tend towards the lighter one personally, but this is another good example because you can get a great riser here, similar price again. But if you feel like you're going to want to be in that win-and-win ecosystem, this is a great option because now you don't have that limit on the weight again. This is not limited to the 40 pounds like the WNS riser is. So this is another great option. So that's kind of my rundown of the 4 good options of risers that you can get as a kind of beginner in 2025. I'm going to go through the limbs like I mentioned now and record that section and put it in my community. So if you want to see that, join the community just for the trial. If you don't like it, you can just cancel afterwards anyway before you're charged or anything. But have a look at that. Before you go though, also you can go to my website. So this is actually the courses website, but you can actually go to onlinearcheryacademy.com, my website, and you can get my free weekly newsletter where I send out tips every week. So you just go to the website and put your email address in the front page here. Every week I send out a free newsletter where I give out tips on sometimes equipment, sometimes technique, sometimes training, that kind of thing. Really, really good. Loads. I think there's about 8,000 subscribers now worldwide. Get this. And then finally as well, as I showed before, if you haven't checked them out as well, go to courses.onlinearcheryacademy.com. As this is a beginner's video, the most kind of obvious course here for most people watching might be the Recurve Archery 101 for beginners. This is exactly the kind of course you might need if you're looking at a beginner's bow, because it's going to help you go from doing a beginner's course, or even you could watch this video course without doing a beginner's course, to basically learn the basics of recurve archery, safety, range, safety, equipment, all of that kind of stuff, technique, obviously, basic technique, and that's going to give you a great foundation to then further go on to get good technique in the future. And maybe if you want to, then you can get the advanced recurve technique course when you're ready for that. But I'd recommend starting with this one. So check those out if you haven't already, and hopefully I will see you inside the community. I'll see you in the next video.